Try that again. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, one more time for good measure. Good evening.
Good evening.
That's much better. That's much better. I'm State Representative Rudy Hobbs. I represent the city of Southfield, Major Village, Bingham Farms, Franklin, and Beverly Hills. This is a new district, so I'm still getting to know the district a little bit better. I grew up here in Southfield, so I know Southfield very well, right? But there's some other areas that, I'm still trying to work my way into and make some inroads and make relationships. And I see that there's some elected officials from those communities here. Greg Burry, City Councilman here in Beverly Hills. Mr. Burry. You want to just kind of raise your hand so people can see who you are? We have James Jackson from Congressman Peters' office. He sits in the back here with his two daughters. I thought I saw Myron Frazier walk through the door. I could have swore I did. Yep, City of Southfield here. Am I missing any other elected in the audience? I always like to try to do a little housekeeping to make sure that people know who's kind of sitting amongst them. So we're here to talk about transportation. Transportation is a very, very important topic, heated topic, very well debated topic in Lansing nowadays. And so one of the things I like to do as a state rep is to kind of chat with my constituents about some of the things that are going on in Lansing, understand, your concerns, understand, where you want, what you would like for me to do in Lansing. Because this is a very important issue, right? Transportation, we all know that our roads and bridges truly need some attention. And that attention takes a certain amount of investment. And that investment means money. And so the governor kind of kicked off the conversation a little bit. We've been talking about this for about a year now in the legislature, but the governor has kind of really made it a priority. I mean, he has put it at the very top of his priority list. And so during his State of the State, he shared how we should pay for it. And I think that a lot of people, there's a lot of different reactions to that. There are some legislators in Lansing that would be supportive, and there are some legislators in Lansing that says, they say no way, and then there's some folks that say, hey, look, we really don't know yet. But one of the very important things that I think that all legislators are being encouraged to do is to go home and talk to their constituents about it. Host these type of town halls and kind of get people's reaction, because truly, it is the people that will drive this decision. It's not me sitting in the vacuum up in Lansing that's going to, drive these decisions, or reps in Lansing drive these decisions. It's the people. Because at the end of the day, whatever we come up with, we're all going to have to pay for it. So I brought some friends along to really help me kind of talk through this important issue. So tonight it's kind of going to go with the welcome, which we just did, and then I'm going to turn it over to a gentleman who's been very, very involved in the whole conversation of transportation in Lansing. On both sides of the aisle, Jim Shea, who's here with us, a good friend, a very honest guy. He is the only thing Jim Shea wants to see are good roads. And that is, he's a straight down the middle guy. Like I said, he's worked with both sides of the aisle in terms of educating us on the actual needs for improvement in roads also. So then we also have with us, Dennis Kolar from Oakland County Road Commission. We have Troy Hagan from NDOT. And then we also have Polly Kent, who's also from NDOT. And so NDOT will give a short presentation, but Jim Shea is going to go first with a presentation and talk a little bit about the economics of good roads. And so I say that, we'll have a presentation, then we'll kind of have some back and forth. And, get people's input and hear what you have to say. So does it sound like a deal? That sounds okay? Sounds good? All right, so that's kind of how we will go. So Jim Shea, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Representative Hobbs. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and speak with you folks. First off, I'm a contractor. I've been a construction worker all of my life since I was 17, which is 49 years, so you can figure that one out. And also, a couple of years ago, my wife and I started a program for kids in Michigan, students. We know we have the, there's no country like America. It's a wonderful country in the world, and we can all be a part of our government. My wife and I travel a lot, we know this. So what we wanted to do is find a way that we could find kids get engaged with our government. We started a program called Students Reinventing Michigan, whereby any Michigan student would write a proposal on a topic that we would select, and then the winners would receive prizes of $10,000, $5,000 down to one. And this is something we wanted to do. This is our third year coming up doing it. The first year we picked the topic of how the legislature can fix our roads with public support. And if the books you've seen come from our program. It's on our website. I really encourage you to read the winning proposals, because these kids are sharp. And they solved this problem themselves in 2 months, which I think is inspirational. I'm going to go through a part of the PowerPoint that we do, and bear with me, I'm not a tech guy. Is that in focus for you folks? Is that okay? Okay, this is this year's PowerPoint, and I'm only going to touch on the economics of what we put together this year. And this is our award ceremony last year in the state capitol. There's some beautiful trophies, and we're real proud of it. We'd like you to get your kids involved. But the part we're going to talk about in here is if you invest in our roads and bridges, and we're not recommending any way to do that. We're just taking the number that the governor talked about in January. And if that amount of money is invested into our infrastructure, we looked at it and we said, well, is this going to be a good thing, or is this going to be a bad thing? Is it an investment, or is it something that is regressive and costs us out of our pockets? So we did an analysis. There's an organization that tells us that in Michigan, because the roads are bad, on average, you're paying $357 to do repairs to your cars, that if the roads were in better shape, you wouldn't pay that $357. So on average, you're giving that money to the car repair service, like it or not, rich or poor. To let you know how big this is, there's about 7.822 million cars in Michigan, or 7.822. Multiplied by that $357, it's $2.5 billion that we as citizens of Michigan are spending to do repairs on our cars, that if we didn't have to do those repairs, if the roads were better, we'd have that $2.5 billion to spend positively on things that we need or would like. Might be the difference between keeping or losing your home. So that's a big number. It's very important. What we did is we said $150 is about the money per vehicle that was being mentioned earlier this year. So we used a cycle of 7 years for, here's the one showing it. Okay, every year you're going to pay $150 out of your pocket for the increased fees. So I've got in the left column, cumulatively, 150. Second year you paid another 150, that's 300. Next year, 450. You carry this down to a total of after 7 years, you'd have paid $1,050 in increased fees or taxes, whatever you like to call them, and in whatever fashion that the citizens would like or the legislature chooses. Now what happens, what we looked at, as the roads get better, your cars don't get beat up as badly, especially if you have an older car, you're going to save more because they get beat up more than a newer car. So what we've done is we said in the first 2 years, the roads are still bad, and your car's still getting beat up, you're not getting any money back. You're still spending it on ABC auto repair. But in the third year, we're saying, wow, the roads are better, and I'm not spending that whole $357 anymore. And that's where you see it's kind of funny, it's a negative number. But a portion of that money you keep, you don't spend it. Then you get into the fourth year and you see we're totally positive. You've increased in your investment $600, but you've gotten back $714, putting you $114 ahead. And when you carry this out to 7 years, and there's a reason for 7 years. People used to keep their cars for 7 years before they would trade them or sell them. Now that's gone up to 11 years. So look at how many new cars aren't being built and sold now. But I've used the 7 years because that's what it used to be. So just for the damage after that 7-year period, you're in the pocket, positively, $735. Now, how many folks would agree that their cars are damaged, don't last as long on bad roads? Do our cars last less, anybody think they're not having a shortened life? Anybody? Is 10% a fair number? Fair? Okay. I did this about 6 years ago for our internal fleet. We own 200 vehicles. I did these numbers just for us. Our number comes up about 20% plus, so the 10% is conservative. What we said is let's take an average, not an average car, let's take a car that costs $25,000 new, and 10% of that would be $2,500 in extended life. Let's track that the same as we did for economics as we did the damage to the cars. If you will look in the middle column, we have the extended life value of that new vehicle. First 2 years, we're not saying that anything is saved. It's still losing its service life. It's still being damaged. But in the third year, now the roads are getting repaired, and the vehicle is going to have an extended life. And we plug this in, and we come up with 500. In the third year, you've got a $500 plus, the 93 minus, if you remember the funny negative number. So you're $407 to the good in the fourth year. Carrying this through for 7 years, you have the $735, because you don't have that damage anymore, because the roads are fixed. We invested to fix them. The car, you saved $2,500, and in our pockets, we have $2,235 over 7 years. And multiply that times 7.8 million vehicles. It's a monstrous number. Okay, so what this works out to be, and I know these are a lot of numbers, but this is important to lock in on this. If you pay $1,050 over that 7 years, you're going to get that return of $32.35. If you're a gambler, you'd be investing $150 in a roulette table, and every time you put those chips down, you would get a return of $4.62. And that's a pretty good return. I did 13 town halls in the UP in 8 days last year, and it came up, you know, number one, elderly woman, widow, and she said, you know, I can't afford my medicine. Sometimes I can't afford my food. And so we talked about this. We said, what would happen if the folks that are like that don't have funds to be able to pay anymore? They just can't do it, and that happens. So we thought, what happens if for the first 3 years, 4 years, those folks don't have to pay? And in that fourth year, then they start paying, and what they're paying with is that actual cash that comes out of their pocket and goes to Representative Hobbs' repair station. And this year they don't give it to him. He gets nothing. Okay? Some goes for the increased fees, and the rest goes for that medicine or food. So there are ways through discussion that it seems possible to make this work. And that is the economics of it. I'm excited about it.
Thank you, Darryl. Appreciate it. And at this point, we'll quickly just transition right over to MDOT.
Thank you, Representative Hobbs.
No problem.
I've got to get my PowerPoint fired up here. I really want to thank all of you for coming out here on a beautiful Michigan evening. Really impressed to see such a good crowd. And can you all hear me okay? I'm just going to talk and wander. Transportation is critically important to Michigan's economy, especially in this era of global marketplace. Not just to Michigan's economy, but to the national economy. As you can see, 35% of U.S.-Canada trade flows right through Michigan. And for a state like Michigan that manufactures so many products, the highways, especially because much of our shipping is still done by truck, are critically important to the economic health of the state. And not just roads. Other types of transportation, especially in urbanized areas, bus, passenger rail, aviation, all of those modes contribute significantly to the local economies where they're based. And 80% of our tourism, which is one of our big three industries, is still auto-based. I wanted to tell you, asset management is a process that MDOT uses to make sure that we're getting the most out of every taxpayer dollar that is attributed to us for use on the road. The asset management, here's a link at the top. The asset management approach is a data-driven decision-making approach that we've used for decades, actually, that we assess the condition of the roadways, use that data to determine what fix would be best and at what time. And what it does is ultimately saves us money. In the first 15 or so years of a roadway life, the pavement deteriorates about 40%. If you invest $1 at that point to bring the road back up to good condition, you save yourself $6 to $14 down the road, because after that 15-year point, the road deteriorates much more quickly. It becomes more expensive to fix it. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I'm just going to run over here and grab this water. Some of the other things that MDOT has been doing to make the most use of your taxpayer dollars. We've been seeking innovations and efficiencies, one-time savings. We restructured the department to save money on staff. We refinanced bonds to save money on interest. And over the past 5 years, we've saved an average of $63 million a year. This graph, as I said, we use the asset management process to assess the condition of our state trunk lines, our state highways. And this graph shows the black line is the percent of highways in good or fair condition. And you can see that upward curve starting in 1996. The red lines are the amount of money we've invested in those highways over the years. And you can see around about 2006, we started to have less money to actually invest in the roads because of increasing fuel efficiency, the struggling economy, fewer people just buying gasoline. And very quickly, after you stop investing in those roads, the condition starts to fall off. That one bump there in 2009 is the national stimulus package that was done. Transportation funding, especially for trunkline highways, relies on user fees, and basically three pots of money. There are federal funds that come from federal gas taxes, state gas taxes, and state registration fees. For local roads, county and city streets, sometimes there are villages or general funds that are put toward roads. But at the state level, those are the only sources of funding for state highways. And you can see, 1997 was the last time that we raised the gas tax. And this graph shows the green line is the actual amount of money being invested in our state truck lines to keep them in good repair. But over time, with inflation, that money is not as valuable. And you can see the light blue line is, the light blue line is inflation, like household inflation, consumer price index is what they call it. But construction prices vary a little bit from the average market goods that we buy at the grocery store. And you can see that the dark blue line is the producer price index deflation. And so what the position that we're in now is that our money, our gas taxes today, are about as valuable as the gas taxes were in 1996, before we raised the gas tax the last time. So what we can buy with the money we have is not what it once was. And as I said, prices, construction prices fluctuate greatly, but overall they continue to rise, and it depends to some degree on world demand. For example, in 2008, when they were gearing up for the Chinese Olympics, you see the spike in prices there because the world demand for steel and construction materials was higher as China prepared for those Olympics. And of course, in Michigan, one thing you can guarantee is somewhere in Michigan it's going to be snowing in the winter, even when we have a mild winter like we did last year. And the price of salt has more than doubled since 1997. People have been studying this issue and talking about this issue for at least 5 years now, and many reputable groups have come out in support of increasing the fees for transportation. Lots of people recognize the huge benefit that we would see if we would be willing to make this investment in our infrastructure. What's true at the state level is also true at the local level. This is a measure of the federal aid system. The Transportation Asset Management Council has been measuring the condition of about 40,000 miles of federal aid system since 2004. And you can see the green bars are the roads in good condition, the yellow are fair, and the red are poor. So the number of poor roads since they started measuring this has just continued to increase due to a lack of funding. The bottom line is that the proposal to invest in transportation, we're talking some big numbers, nobody denies that. But if we don't do this now, it's only going to cost more later. The roads will not fix themselves. It's a question of being willing to make an investment now so that our children are not saddled with the bill to improve those roads 10 years from now. Costs of doing nothing. And Jim alluded to some of this in his figures. Not just the cost per driver for repairs to the vehicle, but also time lost in congestion, fuel wasted in congestion, traffic crashes. It's estimated that costs about $3,000 per driver annually. And not to mention, it's hard to put a price on safety. And there are lots of factors that contribute to crashes, but certainly the condition of the roadways is one of them. The benefits of doing this now are huge. In the first 2 years after we begin to make this kind of investment, we create 12,000 jobs a year. We would increase personal income by about $1.6 billion across the state. Again, this speaks to the numbers that Jim was talking about. And we could increase gross state product through increased consumer demand by almost $3 billion. Over 10 years, if we invested $1.2 billion a year as the governor's calling for, we would generate over $10 billion in additional real personal income statewide and $24 billion in gross state profit. That would be huge for our state. That would be huge for our economy. And at the same time, we would get to enjoy better roads, better transit, better transportation systems. Now, just for comparison, Here in Michigan, we spend about $1.7 billion in state funds on transportation each year. There's Ohio. They have a comparable population to Michigan. They have a comparable amount of traffic, comparable system size. They spend $1 billion more a year than we invest $1 billion more a year in their infrastructure than we do, and they've been doing it for 8 years.
A quick question.
Okay.
Educate me, how does toll roads play into that?
And that's a great question, and I guess I would ask, if it's okay with Representative, can we save that till the end? If we have time.
I think she's going to wrap up in a few seconds.
I will.
And then we're going to take questions.
Okay. Thank you for asking. Again, looking at the five other Midwestern states, 6, I guess. You see Michigan there. The blue bar is population. The red bar is the number of registered vehicles. You can see we're sort of comparable to Ohio there. But per person, we spend less even in Indiana, and far less than Ohio. Vehicle registration fees, same story. The blue bar is the registration fee for a new $14,000 car. The red bar is the registration fee for a 5-year-old truck, pickup truck kind of thing. And the yellow line is for tractor trailer registration fee. And you can see that we're pretty comparable to Wisconsin. Our registration fees are lower than many of our neighbor states for vehicles. And for trucks, we're lower than most of them. And as you pointed out, we don't necessarily have toll roads. If the legislature were to act on this revenue package this summer, work could begin, if they act by June, it could begin this summer, so we can start feeling the benefits this year. And I will turn it over now to Troy, who's going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the proposal.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'd like to thank Representative Hobbs for inviting us here this evening. I'll just do a quick overview. There's several, as Representative Hobbs stated, the governor laid this problem out in his State of the State in January. Since then, there's been a continued discussion in Lansing amongst the executive branch and the legislative branch about transportation funding. This has been an ongoing conversation for 8 years now. Director Steidel has been director of Michigan Department of Transportation for 7 years. Has said, you know, it's like Groundhog Day for him, and he continues to discuss it each and every year. So the governor is not wedded to any specific proposal, but he did, to start the conversation, he did introduce a user fee based proposal, which is a gas tax fee increase and a registration fee increase that would come out to about $120 per person. And so Governor Snyder's call for the $1.2 billion to fund transportation preservation has been taken seriously by the legislature. Since Governor Snyder proposed raising the $1.2 billion in new revenue for transportation in a State of the State address, Senator Khan has introduced a package of bills that would raise over $1 billion in revenue as well. The House and Senate have convened a joint committee to study the issue. Different revenue proposals have been suggested, ranging from registration and fuel tax increases to tire taxes to a service tax and even to a new lottery. MDOT has been busy responding to numerous legislative questions and making presentations before legislative committees. There seems to be an acceptance of the problem, but questions about current spending and policies such as truck weight limits continue to persist. It is premature to say that a proposal of this magnitude will pass the legislature, but there are encouraging signs. So since January, as I stated, Senator Khan and others have introduced several bills in the Senate to address the situation. The bills are similar to the governor's proposal in the amount of funding requested and the need for action soon. But they differ by calling for Proposal A arrangement for a statutory plan of fuel taxes and registration fees, with voters asked to reject that plan with a higher sales tax for transportation. If the sales tax is defeated, the statutory plan would take effect. The House and the Senate have appointed a joint transportation committee to review the funding issue. MDOT has made numerous presentations and responded to numerous questions from the joint committee. MDOT Director Kirk Steidel has presented the Governor's fiscal year 2014 budget to the House and Senate Appropriations Subcommittees on Transportation. This has led to discussion of the transportation proposal as well because the FY 2014 budget assumes passage of the proposal. Director Steidel and myself have met with numerous lawmakers to briefly discuss the funding situation, MDOT's efficiencies, and comparisons to neighboring states. MDOT staff continues to respond to an increased number of funding questions and develop more formal responses to common questions. Numerous outside organizations such as chambers of commerce, professional organizations, and major contractors have been lobbying lawmakers in Lansing and in their home districts. So what has been the legislative response to this so far? Generally, lawmakers have acknowledged the dire condition of the state's roads and that it would be better to act now rather than to let the problem linger and increase the costs. There are questions about some current road practices and specific issues like truck weights, the use of road warranties, toll roads in Michigan, and registrations for hybrid vehicles. Members are engaging the public more formally in the issue through questionnaires and town hall meetings such as this. MDOT has participated as a resource in those town hall meetings. Members are beginning to suggest different ideas for new revenue or alternatives to raising revenue altogether. The options vary widely from a new tire tax to a new lottery to reinstating business taxes to allowing advertising on rest areas to a new use tax on services. What comes next? MDOT will compile numerous documents and responses to individual concerns into a single site so that all lawmakers and the public have access to the same information. The Governor and the Legislature need to reach agreement on which revenue option can best address the situation and gain necessary votes for approval. MDOT supports the Governor's proposal using fuel taxes and registration fees, but all parties have expressed flexibility on the final revenue options. MDOT has requested that lawmakers consider three principles in the final revenue options. First, the revenue must be at the level the Governor has proposed, $1.2 billion. The need really is that high. Second, the revenue option should allow for growth so we don't repeat the debate in the next few years. Third, the revenue option can certainly include fuel taxes, but we need to recognize the steady decline in those revenues. The Governor and the Legislature must agree upon a distribution concept for the new revenue and to refine the concept before the package. The Governor has proposed a new commercial corridor fund to align new funding with routes that are commercially important across the state. The administration would prefer the revenue debate be much further along before turning to the distribution debate. Legislative committees must begin to schedule hearings and votes on specific proposals. There are lawmakers in both chambers willing to sponsor the tough revenue bills, but the support must be joined by full committees and in the House and Senate. Here's a few considerations. While a sales tax increase has been suggested, that would require a constitutional amendment with a two-thirds vote in the legislature and approval by the voters. There is strong desire in the administration to complete action on the proposal in time to fund at least some work in the 2013 construction season, as Polly mentioned in her PowerPoint. Lawmakers as well seem to feel the window for action is now through the end of the spring session. There is a strong desire among some lawmakers to offset the increase in these taxes with reductions in other costs to taxpayers. Suggestions have been made about linking the transportation taxes to changes in no-fault insurance, presumably lowering premiums, to reductions in the income tax and other measures. These proposals would broaden the debate for purely transportation to other areas of state government. One unknown is the degree to which so that is, as you can tell, it's still a much ever-changing debate, and we continue to work on it on a daily basis.